And we derive that from the Holy Quran. Fly by this ayah. I want to change, but how? It's hard. I tell you how. Because Al-Imam al-Hussein, he is whom he is today. One thing he was writing this. One ignorant man in history said this.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Al-Imam Abu Abdullah Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullahi alayh was asked of the 121st ayah from the second chapter of the Holy Quran, Surah al-Baqarah, verse 121, which states, الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته أولئك يؤمنون به. And those whom have received the book, or those whom we have given the book, recite the book in the manner which is ought to be recited, for they are the ones that believe in the Quran. Let me translate the verse for you one more time so you think of every word within this ayah. الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته أولئك يؤمنون به. And those who have received the book, or those whom we have given the book, recite the book in the manner which is ought to be recited. They are the ones whom believe in it, or believe in the Quran. So the Imam was asked, what does it mean for us to recite the book in the manner which is ought to be recited? وَكَيْفَ نَتْلُوهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. The Imam here introduced 9 qualities and qualifications for those individuals. The very first, he said, يُرَتِّلُونَ آيَاتِهِ. They recite the Quran. They recite the verses of the Quran. They do not read the Quran. Number 2, وَيَتَفَقَّهُونَ مَعَانِيهِ. And they contemplate and they think of its meanings and its lessons. وَيَعْمَلُونَ بِأَحْكَامِهِ. And they implement its laws. Whenever they come across laws being introduced by the Quran, they understand the laws, learn the laws, and implement the laws. وَيَرْجُونَ وَعْدَهِ. And they await every single promise made by the Quran. And within the Quran there are many promises. They await every promise within the Quran. وَيَخْشَوْنَ وُعُودَهِ وَيَخْشَوْنَ عَذَابَهِ. And they are afraid. They give fear to themselves of the punishments introduced within the Quran. وَيَمْتَثِلُونَ قُصَصَهِ. And they incorporate the stories of the Quran within their lives. وَيَعْتَبِرُونَ أَمْثَالَهِ. And they seek advice and admonishments from its examples. وَيَأْتَمِرُونَ أَوَامِرَهِ. And they obey its commands. وَيَجْتَنِبُونَ نَوَاهِيهِ. And they refrain themselves from that which the Quran asks them to refrain from. Then the Imam, after introducing those 9 qualities and qualifications, he says, ما هو والله بحفظ آياته وقراءة سوره وَسَرْدِ حُرُوفِهِ. It is indeed, wallah, the Imam swears by Allah, and he says it is not by reading its words, it is not by counting its letters or memorizing its verses. حفظوا حروفه وأضاعوا حدوده وإنما هو التدبر في آياته. The Imam says they memorized its words, its ayat, they read the Quran, but they forgot its teachings. So once again we come to the 121st ayah of Surah al-Baqarah. Those who recite the Quran in the manner which is ought to be recited, they must keep those 9 qualities and qualifications in mind, for then they become the believers in the Quran. Today, you may ask the Muslims all around the world, any Muslim, anyone, you ask him, are you Muslim? He says, yes. Do you believe in the Quran? Of course, I'm Muslim, I believe in the Quran. But according to the tafsir of Imam al-Sadiq, how many Muslims believe in the Quran? How many Muslims, they refrain from that which is ought to be refrained from in the Quran? Implement its teachings, understand its principles and ahkam, take examples from the Quran and bring it into their day-to-day lives. Brothers and sisters, the nights and days of Ashura and the mimbar of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is ought to be dedicated to the Quran. For just like Imam al-Hussein and Amir al-Mu'mineen is mazloom, wallah, this Quran is also mazloom. Many of us, we have the Quran in our homes, but yet we never go to create a friendship with the Quran. Sometimes we may recite the Quran, we read the Quran, sometimes we even go to Khatm An'am, Surah Yasin. We read the Quran, but the Imam says they don't read, but they recite the Quran. And next thing, وَيَتَفَقَّهُونَ فِي عِبَارَاتِهِ. They try to understand every meaning of the Quran. So we read the Quran, but yet as soon as the Quran is over, we close the Quran, we kiss the Quran, the ghiba begins. The namima begins. The accusation begins. What does the Quran say about that? We read the Quran. When we come to our businesses, the riba is there. Usury is there. Cheating is there. But we read the Quran. We read the Quran and the Quran teaches us humility, to be humble. But yet we walk with arrogance on the face of the earth. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. We don't implement the teachings of the Quran. Therefore, if we want to be believers and mu'mineen in the Quran, brothers and sisters, we have to spend time with the Quran. Understand the Quran. Spend quality time with the Quran. And that is the job of the mimbar of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We don't spend 10 nights, 20 nights, 40 nights, 60 nights in the name of Imam Hussein, but yet we forget the main principles of Abu Abdullah. I say this every single year, and I tried to mention it in the very first night of Muharram. Al-Imam al-Hussein, he had a mission statement. And he made it very clear what his mission statement was. And that is why we have to write the mission statement of Imam Hussein at the doors of every majlis around the world. So when we enter and we leave, we remind ourselves, this is the mission statement of Imam Hussein. Let us not forget why we are here. Let us not waste our time doing other things. Let us focus on the mission statement of Imam Hussein. What was it? إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا بل خرجت لإصلاح أمة جدي رسول الله لكي آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير على سيرة جدي وأبي. This is the mission statement of Imam Hussein. This is where he wants us to be. I did not embark on this journey for any reason besides perfecting the ummah of my grandfather Rasulullah, bringing perfection to the Islamic world. And that is why we ought to spend our time with the Quran. Why? Because Al-Imam Al-Hussein, he is whom he is today because he was the embodiment of the Quran. Because he implemented the Quran. Because the Quran was the guide of Abu Abdullah. How so? Amir al-Mu'mineen, his father, sits Al-Imam Al-Hasan and Hussein down and he says to them, my sons, Hassan and Hussein, Allah, Allah بالقرآن لا يسبقنكم بالعمل به غيركم. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions the holiest, most sacred, glorified name twice. There isn't a name or a word or a statement above Allah. He repeats it twice to make sure we understand the importance of what he's about to say. Allah, Allah. Imam Ali is not like us, we see something, Allah. No. Imam Ali, he says, Allah, Allah. So his sons, give him all his attention, give him all their attention. Then he says, Bil Quran. Make sure you give your undivided attention to the Quran. لا يسبقنكم. Do not allow anyone else to proceed in implementing the teachings of the Quran before you. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi says, Alaikum bil-Quran fattakhidhuhu qa'idan wa imama. This is to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. He says, make sure the Quran becomes your imam. The Quran becomes your leader. The Quran becomes your guide. And that is why the imam is Quranun Natiq, the illustration and demonstration of the teachings of the Quran. Insha'Allah, we will embark on a journey to explore the first 11 chapters of the Quran, insha'Allah. A closer look into the glorious book, and we will bless our understanding of the Quran with the teachings of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Al-Imam Al-Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. So that we can try to be amongst those whom the Quran speaks of in chapter 2, verse 121. الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته أولئك يؤمنون به. They are the believers in the Quran. It's unfortunate, brothers and sisters, that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen says, do not allow anyone else to proceed in implementing the Quran before you. This is the teachings of our Imam, right? But yet, who's implementing the Quran nowadays? as a community, countries, nations? Is it the Muslims who are implementing the Quran? The Quran speaks of humility. The Quran speaks of honesty. I was traveling on the way here. I told some of my friends, in some villages in Europe, when it becomes dark, you go into supermarkets, there is no tenant. Gas station, there is no tenant. There's no one there. You go in the shop, the price is there and there is a box. You pick up a water, you drop €1. You go home. You go, you do your shopping, you calculate exactly how much you've taken from the supermarket, you drop it in the box, and you leave. This is Islam. The refugees. The Muslim Ummah faced a great challenge when all those people lost their lives, their children, their homes were destroyed, and they sought refuge. Doesn't the Quran teach us that we are all created equal? We come from one father and one mother. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. Doesn't Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah alayhi teach us that people are two types? إما أخ لك في الدين أو نظير لك في الخلق. Either he is your brother in faith or in creation. Who gave them refuge? Who opened their doors for them? Who helped them? Doesn't the Quran teach us إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر? Salat is supposed to refrain us from evil acts, from greed, from hypocrisy. But yet, brothers and sisters, thank Allah. Be amongst those who glorify Allah that you are blessed to be here, to be reminded of the legacy of Imam Hussein, to be taught the Quran, and then ask Allah to give you the honor and the privilege of bringing that into your hearts, accepting that with your mind, with your entire existence. Inshallah, we will examine the first chapter, Surah al-Hamd, from the Holy Quran in the following manner. Number one, what are the necessary tools in order for us to observe the Quran with, to explore the Quran with? Number two, what are the 9 methodologies of tafsir, and whom were the founding scholars of those methodologies? Number 3, what is the position of Surah al-Hamd and the importance of Fatihat al-Kitab? Number 4, we will examine the very first ayah, the very second ayah of the first chapter, the one that we began with. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is number 1. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We'll shed light on this ayah in which we recite 10 times a day in our salah. Yet many of us fly by this ayah without contemplating on it even once through the 10 times in our salah. Number 5, we will examine the position of hamd, gratitude and thankfulness through the legacy of Ahl al-Bayt. Number 7, through the khutbah of Sayyidina wa Mawlana al-Imam al-Hussein. And finally, number 8, we will examine how al-Imam al-Hussein showed gratitude to Allah and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows gratitude to al-Imam al-Hussein. Wa sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, we have spoken about this, and therefore I will keep it very brief. Every person who indulges with the Quran is in need of specific tools. Without those tools, we cannot understand the Quran. We cannot explore the Quran. What are those tools? Number 1 is the aql, the intellect. We cannot explore, we cannot understand, we cannot study the Quran without the aql. Many have tried and they have failed miserably in order to understand the Quran, but without aql, strictly relying on the second aspect, which is the naql, the narration. Inshallah, we'll get to that. How so? They say that Abu Hanifa, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, he was teaching a class. And in his class, he says, I have a new theory. And my theory is Allah cannot punish the shaitan. Because Allah created shaitan from what? From fire. And in the day of judgment, those who He wants to punish, where does He put them? Into fire. So fire cannot be punished with fire. This is my new theory. Buhlul was sitting there. So he says to him, are you sure you're not going to change your mind about this? He says, yeah, I'm sure. This is my new theory. So Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, he came out of the class, and Buhlul was there standing with a brick. As soon as he came out, he hit him with the brick and he broke his head and there was blood, and they took him to the judge. So the judge said, Buhlul, did you hit him? He says, yeah. Why did you hit him? He says, because Abu Hanifa, according to him, everyone is forced to do that which they do. He does not believe in free will. He believes that everything that we do is predetermined for us. Allah dictates what we do. So I didn't really hit him. Allah hit him. Second, Abu Hanifa believes that Allah on the day of judgment cannot punish shaitan with fire because he's created from fire. Abu Hanifa, what are you created with? He says clay. He says, I only hit you with clay. I didn't think it was going to hurt you. Similarly, if you go to tafsir, for example, Surah al-Jinn, one of the grand mufassirin, when he comes to the relationship of human beings and the jinn, he says, and yes, indeed, there are relationships between human beings and jinn to an extent of marriage. For there are women who have married jinn. Not only that, but they also have become pregnant from the jinn. And we have children that are born from the jinn. I don't understand where this guy's aql, his intellect, went when he was writing those things. Another scholar comes and says that yes, indeed, science says pregnancy can take up to 9 months. But pregnancy in Islam can take up to 10 years. 10 years. Now don't ask me why they say such things. They all have a reason. For example, there was a woman Whom her husband died, 10 years later she gave birth. So this alim, immediately he writes this. Another one, we don't know who got her pregnant. He says the jinn got her pregnant. Those are money. Therefore, the aql is the main element and main navigation system and drive when it comes to understanding the Quran. Without the Quran not also becomes meaningless, but it can also become dangerous. So number one is aql. When we come into the majalis, when we sit down, when we listen, who told you that everything you listen, you should program it in your brain? Who told you that? Any person who you meet, who speaks, is fallible or infallible? Fallible. I myself can make mistakes. Anyone else sitting here can make mistakes, unless you sit in the majlis of a ma'soom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the aql. Go and read, research, ask. Many of us, because we have developed the habit of believing everything that we say, we hear, implementing everything we hear. That is why we have developed a dead community. Today, the inventions, developments of the world, where do they go? They go from Islamic countries to the West, or from the West to the Islamic countries? Huh? From the West to Islamic countries. Why? Because in Islamic countries, most Islamic countries, everything that you are taught, everything that you hear, don't question. You have no right to question anything. Who told you to question? Who are you to speak? But here, you can speak whatever you like. Ask whatever you like. Say whatever you like. And that is why the mind has no limits, has no restrictions, and therefore they reach what they reach today, inventions, new technologies. So what happens? The Islamic world has to import them, from the TV to the microwave to the cars to the... And now, if we want to study, what do we say? What do? We export our children to those universities. Go there. There they let you ask. There they don't limit you. Ahl al-Bayt, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, brothers and sisters, don't look at Islam today. I urge you to read. I urge you to go and look at Kitab al-Kafi, Kitab al-Ihtijaj, Uyun Akhbar al-Rida. There would be atheists that come and debate our imams. Atheists. Christians, Jews, Magans, pagans, idol worshippers. All the way until the time of Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Rida, Imam Hassan al-Askari. Imam Hassan al-Askari developed a tafsir. Why? Because there were some people writing books within the Islamic Ummah, writing books on the false ayat of the Quran. False ayat within the Quran. He's a so-called Islamic scholar writing a book on the false ayat of the Quran. Today, if anybody in any Muslim country writes a book about false ayat from the Quran, what happens to him? Instead of other scholars writing, replying, responding, this is what our Imams taught us. Our Imams, they have set the highest standards, brothers and sisters. The highest standards of tolerance. The highest standards in akhlaq. The highest standards of human morality. But yet, unfortunately, we have created a gap between ourselves and their teachings. So number one is aql. The aql needs to be there. Number two is naql, al-manqul. The second tool is the Quran itself. To understand the Quran, you need the Quran. To understand the Quran, you need the Quran itself. You cannot come to one ayah, read that ayah and say, this is the Quranic perspective in regards to this issue. No. Sometimes you have to read 20 ayat, 10 ayat, 5 ayat in order to understand the Islamic perspective in regards to one issue. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون تجارة عن تراض بينكم. O you believers, do not take each other's wealth and goods unless both parties are pleased. Both parties are content. So today somebody comes to me and he says, give me a loan. I say, here is 100,000. Pay me back 120,000. He says, okay. I say, are you sure you're okay with it? He says, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so I am giving the loan, 100,000. Receiving another loan, 120,000. The guy is okay with it. And Allah in the Quran says what? يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ تِجَارَةً عَنْ تَرَاضٍ بَيْنَكُمْ. Does that mean the Quran says it's okay? No. We go to another ayah. أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. So in order to understand the Quran, we need the Quran itself. Number 2, we need the hadith. Without hadith, no one can explore the Quran. One ignorant man in history, he said this: حسبكم كتاب الله. The Quran is enough for you. But we ask him, tell me from the Quran, how many rak'ah salat al-dhuhr? How many rak'ah salat al-subh? Tell me, Allah says pay zakat. How do I pay zakat on sheep in the Quran? How do I pay zakat on my cattle? Tell me, I have to do tawaf. How many rounds of tawaf do I have? Tell me from the Quran. If the Quran is enough. Therefore, we need hadith. And not only hadith, but we need to examine the hadith. Who's in the chain of narrators? Is this hadith sahih? Is this hadith hasan? Is this hadith a hadith that I can accept and incorporate within the science of rijal? So those are the tools that we need. But what are the 9 methodologies of tafsir? Because sometimes you go to one tafsir, you open it, and you read, and you say, okay, I think I've had enough. I've read the tafsir of Surah al-Hamd. You close it, you go to another tafsir, and it's completely a different story. And you go to another one, and it's a completely different message. You go to another one, and it's completely different. So we have 9 different methodologies of tafsir, brothers and sisters. What are those 9 different methodologies? But keep in mind, I will be mentioning names of books, I will be mentioning scholars, I will be mentioning 9 different methodologies. Do not assume that I, sitting here, approve all of them, or approve those scholars, or are saying this book is the ultimate book representing this methodology of tafsir. No, we're speaking of the most popular ones. We're getting schooled now at the first night, and inshallah we will spend those nights examining every scholar and book until we can come with a conclusion, inshallah. Get ourselves closer to the Quran. Number 1 methodology of tafsir is the philosophical tafsir. The philosophy of Aristotle, the philosophy of Plato. Both mixed together have created a special philosophy by Sadr al-Muta'allihin al-Shirazi, also known as Mullah Sadr. 400 years ago, he wrote a tafsir. It's known as Tafsir Sadr al-Muta'allihin al-Shirazi. The second methodology of tafsir is the methodology of the Ikhbari school of thought. A tafsir that relies only and only on ahadith. And that's it. And of course, There are many scholars who are known as Ikhbari schools of thought, Ikhbari scholars. Al-Isturabadi, Sayyid Ni'matullah al-Jazairi, Fayd al-Kashani, and they have wrote their tafsir. The third type of tafsir is the type of tafsir that relies on natural sciences, chemistry, physics, biology, that speaks of the Quran from a scientific point of view. It doesn't really explore the ahkam and different things. No, it speaks of science. And the Quran is full of science. And there is a scholar by the name of Al-Tantawi who has wrote a tafsir known as Jawahir al-Kalam fi tafsir al-Quran, who could be the most popular one in the field. The fourth type of tafsir is a tafsir that is known as irfani, or the mystic tafsir. And interestingly, I think the most popular of tafsirs here is written by a female. Banu Amina Isfahani. This is her name. And she wrote a tafsir that relies on irfan called Makhzanul Irfan fi Tafsir al-Quran in 15 volumes. So she has a mystic approach to understanding the Quran. The fifth is the social type of tafsir, to speak of social issues. Every society, just like they have many sorts of illnesses, many sorts of medications to refrain people from those illnesses. If you're ill, you go and you seek this medication. They also have social illnesses. So the Quran comes and speaks of those social issues. Some tafasir, such as the tafasir of Sheikh Muhammad Jawad Mughniyah, Al-Kashif, focuses on social issues. Then we have the sixth tafsir, which is the contemporary tafsir, speaks of contemporary issues. The founder of this methodology was Muhammad Abdu, Rada Rashid. But of course, this type of tafsir continues until today. What do I mean contemporary issues? For example, today, we have a woman running for the White House, right? So this is a contemporary issue. It's never happened before. What is the perspective of Islam towards a woman becoming the president? Then there are thousands of issues that begin from there. Why don't we have a woman marja'? Why can't we have a marja' taqlid who is a woman? Why can't we have a head of state that's a woman in Islam? There's all those discussions then erupt from one current theme. Another theme is the issue of refugees. Another issue is, for example, the death penalty. Contemporary issues, but with contemporary tafsir, it needs to be renewed every decade at least, because there are new issues that come up. And we derive that from the Holy Quran. The seventh type of tafsir is the tafsir that focuses on literature, the adabi tafsir. And the scholar who leads this type of tafsir as Al-Zamakhshari, Al-Kashaf al-Zamakhshari, who has a book of tafsir, and every ayah he speaks of that. It's that type of tafsir I don't understand. He speaks of the Arab, why this is marfu', why this is mansub, why if this was this. It's a type of tafsir. The eighth type of tafsir is tafsir through the fiqh and Islamic laws. So every ayah that he comes to, he tries to derive a law from it, a regulation from it. We have one by Al-Muqaddas Al-Ardibili, who was the founder of this. And until today, we have scholars such as Sheikh Al-Irawani, who has wrote Ayat Al-Ahkam. He has come to over 562 verses from the Quran saying that those ayat are ayatul ahkam. We'll explore them through other verses from the Quran. The ninth methodology of tafsir, I'm not going to make it hard on you. This is the last one. The ninth methodology of tafsir is the methodology that combines all of those. Meaning it speaks of philosophy, it speaks of irfan, it speaks of hadith, it speaks of history, it speaks of literature, it speaks of science, it speaks of every one of them, contemporary issues. It speaks of every one of them. Now let me ask you, brothers and sisters, and there are many tafasir here that I cannot mention all of them, and I will not be doing justice to them if I mention the name here, because now we have an abundance of tafasir who are jami'. But I ask you one thing, and I want you, every one of you, men and women, young and old, every one of you to promise me one thing. Go and think about this. For almost 100 years, the followers of Ahlul Bayt have migrated to the West. And for the past 40, 30 years, an abundance number of the followers of Ahlul Bayt have resided in the West. PhDs, lawyers, businessmen, teachers, taxi drivers, you name it. Every part of society we have in the West today, in the millions. Hundreds, not hundreds, but thousands of Husayniyat and masajid for the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Today, your children are born in this country, and they will probably die in this country after hundreds of years, inshallah, a long life. When they think of their wedding, they think of their wedding here. Getting a job, they think of getting a job here. Buying a home, they think of it here. They don't think of going back home. So let me ask you, if your children want to read a tafsir of the Quran in English, a complete tafsir of the Quran through the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, a complete tafsir, have we made that available to them? Will we not be asked in the day of judgment why we have not done this? Why we have neglected the Quran? إني تارك فيكم الثقلين كتاب الله وعترتي آل بيتي. Wearing black for Imam Hussein, crying for Imam Hussein, shedding tears for Imam Hussein. Every sha'ir of Imam Hussein is blessed. But yet Rasulullah said two things amongst you. Let us not neglect the Quran. We spend 100,000 on Muharram, we should spend 100,000 on the Quran. Today, if a professor wants to teach the Quran at a Western university, he cannot teach it through the teachings of Ahlul Bayt because we have not made that available for him. We have not made that available. This is a shortcoming. Allow this responsibility to erupt within you. To say, I will dedicate my life, what is left from my life, to the Quran. To doing this project. To making a Quran available for those who want to read it in English. A tafsir that is jami', compiles every opinion. Every type of tafsir. Make that a promise for the remaining of your life. And what is remaining of our life will pass by quickly. What is left? The years that we have left, dedicate that to Allah. Dedicate that to the Quran. And seek the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt in understanding the Quran. I gave you examples of those who tried to understand the Quran other than Ahlul Bayt and they failed. The Khalifa was sitting on the mimbar A lady asked him, what does this ayah mean? وَفَاكِهَةً وَأَبَّا. He said, فاكهة, I understand, it's fruits. وَأَبَّا, I don't understand. Khalifa. The Khalifa could not understand the Quran. They needed Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib to rescue them every time. They needed Abu al-Hasan. They needed Ahl al-Bayt. أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها. They needed the Ahl al-Bayt to understand the Quran, but yet the legacy of Ahl al-Bayt towards the Quran is not available to the people. After exploring those 9 methodologies of tafsir, let us make it quick. We come to the very first ayah of Surah al-Hamd. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Second ayah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Why is it that this ayah is second after Bismillah and Surah al-Hamd, Fatihat al-Kitab, and we have to read it how many times a day? A minimum? 10 times a day. But when we read it, do we ponder? Do we stop? Do we think? Do we? I don't think so. This ayah evaluates your faith. This ayah evaluates your iman. Is your iman an iman of thankfulness, gratitude, gratification, or negativity and complaint and dissatisfaction? What do I mean? How do you start your day? Salat al-Subh, Allahu Akbar. We read Surah al-Hamd 2 times and we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We glorify Allah. We thank Allah. We show our gratitude to Allah. Then we wake up in the morning with complaints. I hate my job. What is this job I have? What is this trash car I'm driving? What is this home? Ya Allah, شو وقت تخلصني من هالبيت? Oh Allah, when are you gonna give me, somewhere else? I'm fed up. Look at my weekend. I didn't do anything in my weekend. Got ruined by the snow. Got ruined by those guests. Approach of complaint, negativity. But a person who's positive, who truly believes in Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen daily, says what? Oh Allah, thank you that I have a job. Oh Allah, thank you that I have a car. Oh Allah, thank you that I have health to walk. Oh Allah, I thank you that I have a roof. Oh Allah, I thank you that I actually can choose what I do on my weekends. This is gratitude. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to develop within us. He tells me 10 times, say Alhamdulillah, but I don't get it. I don't understand that it's a philosophy. The Quran is a school. It's not just words. One person came to Imam al-Sadiq. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I tried to travel. My cattle died. So I went and I got a new one. Next day it died. Look at my luck. So the Imam says, did you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? Says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, are you joking with me? One cattle died. I got another one and it died. You want me to say Alhamdulillah? For what should I say Alhamdulillah? He says, for Allah was saving you from the biggest trouble, from death in that journey. Go and thank Allah. Another person, he comes to Rasulullah, Ya ibn Rasulullah, they took me to prison for a week and then they told me it was a mistake. The Imam said, did you say Alhamdulillah? Ya ibn Rasulullah, you want me to say Alhamdulillah because I went to prison? He says, yes. Because Allah saved you from a greater calamity. Sometimes some people, they even have a problem with Allah. Look, even Allah, He has a problem with me. I pray and He doesn't answer my dua. My parents, they don't like me. My wife doesn't like me. My children, even Allah doesn't like me. Why? Because Allah doesn't answer my dua. What is your dua? I want Him to take my wife, for example. وَلَعَلَّ الَّذِي أَبْطَأَ عَنِّي هُوَ خَيْرٌ لِي بِعِلْمِكَ بِعَاقِبَةِ الْأُمُورِ. Sometimes when Allah delays our dua, it is the greatest gift that Allah is giving us. But yet we don't understand. So some of us might be thinking, okay, Sayyid, to be honest with you, I agree. I am one of those complainers. I'm negative. I want to change. But how? It's hard. I tell you how. Two very simple ways. One, try to develop the habit of helping others. Sometimes we don't know how to help others. Wallahi, sometimes even 5 minutes. We can do something for people, but because we have said no so many times, we don't know how to say yes. Al-Imam Zainul Abidin says, حاجات الناس إليكم شنو؟ من نعم الله عليكم. If people need you, it's a blessing. Don't take that for granted. When you help someone who is in need, how do you feel? Somebody's ill, he's in the bed, he cannot move, you go and you help this person. How do you feel? You feel you have to be thankful to Allah because that person can't walk, but you can. When you go and you help someone that is poor, how do you feel? Okay, maybe you feel that I want a promotion, I want to buy a new house. But then you go, for example, to your country and you go and you see your cousin. He has nothing in his refrigerator. So you take out $100, $200, $500, you give. How do you feel? You feel the gratitude. You feel, wow, I am so blessed. So, one, helping others. ما قال لا قط إلا في تشهده لولا التشهد كانت لاؤه. نعم. This is your Imam. Second, don't let people take away your joy. No one can take away your joy unless you let them. Understand this. No one can take away your joy unless you let them. In fact, within the du'as, the Imams, they say, oh Allah, we pray to you so that you don't make those jealous of us, or those who dislike us, or our enemies happy with our distress. Why? Because we let people take our joy from us. Why? How? Something happens, somebody does something, says something, acts in a way, we get upset. It's the end of the world. Wait. Think of all the good things in your life. Why are you focusing on this minor petty issue? Count your blessings. As soon as you count your blessings, you forget your problem. And you don't let anybody take your joy. And this is the legacy of Ahlul Bayt. They taught us to count our blessings. So sometimes when they did the hamd while counting the blessings of Allah.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.